Hey, good morning. I'm going to be wearing two hats this morning. The first, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the mission stuff. I'm Andy Bonner, by the way. I'm the missions pastor here. Several of you are fairly new, and we would love to have your involvement within the mission stuff. But anyway, let's take a look. Next week, a couple of things. Number one, the Builders for Christ team will be commissioned, and that's an exciting time. And Michael and Jillian Wills will be here. Michael and Jillian serve at the Rift Valley Academy in Kijabi, Kenya. They work in training Mike as a teacher at a Christian academy there. And they will be here, and they will also be involved in a meet and greet luncheon afterwards. So if you would like a light lunch and hear more about their ministry, we would encourage you to stay and join us a little bit right after the third service. So let's take a look. Several of us, well, actually a small team, relatively small team, headed out to Haiti about 3 weeks ago. We got back, and I just wanted to give you a quick update on some of that. First of all, the shot you're looking at here is the team, minus Patty Genetasio. What was exciting to me in this, as you look at this picture, is that about half the team is actually Haitian, and it was really fun for us to be working together, particularly on our medical team, where half the team were local people who were working in the medical industry, in the clinic and beyond, so that's fairly exciting. The next shot is scary. We had mostly women on the trip, and we have this church that we've been building, and we needed to get shutters on them. So we gave tools to women, a dangerous thing. That sounded a little sexist, but I didn't mean it that way. I meant it. They had not had the practice, and so they were all learning how to do this stuff, totally excited. And by the way, it's going to cost me a new drill. My wife said, "I don't have one of these. I need one, Andy." And that was less than a subtle hint. And no, that's not what's missing in the Amazon Prime order. I got something else that's awesome. Yeah, I got something, you'll like it. Anyway, the next shot is us taking a break. You'll notice the shutters in the back are done, and we are sitting down taking a bit of a break for some lunch. The benches, what you're looking at are the benches that they have here in the church, and we're hoping to rectify that in November and get some benches made for the people up there. When we were there, it was still in the dry season. It's now rained, and there's been an abundance of rain. The people in the town in Wangamon were actually, literally, I'm not exaggerating, several hundred people were getting their daily water from this hole that's in the ground, and they actually would dig a hole, and the water would filter in, and somebody would sit there and dish out bowls full of water into these cans, and then they would take it back and filter it. So it's kind of a little bit, it's really challenging because we've been working there trying to get them water. And the goal are these kids that we're going to be looking at. You know what, for you, because you don't know them, you haven't seen them, you haven't touched them, you haven't laughed with them, it's not quite the emotional contact. But when I look at these kids and I think of them, I go, you know what, these are kids that could be our kids, and they just need some of the basic things, and anyway, okay, I could go on. The picture here, next picture is that of the well. We've had this well, it's hand dug actually. It goes down 75 feet or so, and because of some problems, the well pump itself that we've already purchased has not yet been, or had not been installed. And Patty Genetasio is there. Patty has helped us out in a number of the water projects in the water ministry, and it was kind of frustrating actually. And the cisterns, you see the two cisterns off the end of the back, those things weren't operating because of some $20 parts that they weren't able to get, because the only place you can get them is in Port-au-Prince, which is 5 hours away if you drive straight, and if you have to take little buses and stuff, it's a whole day to get the part. So the good news is that since we were there, the cisterns are now full. I've seen pictures of water flowing out of there. The pump is in the well, and it has been cemented in an initial coat, and that will be strengthened a little bit more. But that's really great. Our goal is really to get water for people so that they literally don't have to take it out of the mud hole. Our medical care, small team, but yet we were able to see over 300 people when we were there. That's Keith Proctor and Dr. Stanley, who heads up the Pignon Clinic that we're involved in there in Haiti, and it was a thrilling time for us to be able to minister that way. It's a lot of hard work, but there are lots of laughs. The picture here is of Susan and her daughter, Susan Baker, and her daughter Rachel. Rachel's a Marine officer stationed in the West Coast, and Donna, who is a nurse, Donna Proctor is a nurse in Tennessee. All of them grew up here and have roots here, and they just were working together, and it really was a joy. One of the things that's happened that's kind of new is is what you're seeing here. We were looking to be able to have people who prayed, local people who would pray with the people who had just gotten the medical attention. And Jephthah Lucian, who is we work with, found this guy, Pastor McKenzie. The guy is like awesome. He is the penultimate evangelist, and once we sicked him on his task of, basically praying with all the people who left, there has not been a trip since we were there, our medical clinic, when someone hasn't come to a saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. It's awesome, awesome. And what's also awesome is this other thing that happened, and that is we've been able to procure, there's a place in the United States that actually prints tracts or information, little pamphlets on Jesus, and we're able to get several thousand of those, so they have them down there, and we're able to print these things out. And that picture just thrills me, that you got this young kid who is looking at and reading about Jesus Christ in a way that's enjoyable for him, probably isn't able to afford a Bible, that type of thing, so that's it. We moved from there to south of Port-au-Prince to a place called Gressier, to an American clinic there. The American clinic has been operating for a number of years, and we were able to really get a lot of good information from them. This is Donna Proctor. Donna's holding this little kid down. He had a massive infection in his knee, and it was to the point that he may well have had to have it amputated. So they were, literally, you have to go in and debride the garbage out of it. And the kid wasn't happy. He wasn't happy at all. But the good news is, about a week later, we got word that this kid was really doing pretty well, and it looks like things are going to work there. So it's just kind of the stuff that happens. Gressier, where we went, it was a wonderful opportunity for us to link with people Americans who are working, or non-national NGOs who are working in Haiti, and help us to understand some of the resources, the places we can get resources. Where can you buy drugs cheaply in Port-au-Prince, for example? And now I have a list. I know the drugs they carry. I know the prices they are, and that kind of thing. So that's kind of a thrill for us. Finally, I just want to let you know that there will be a Haiti Vision team coming up. It's scheduled for November 4th through the 12th. That's the Veterans Day week. So if you were to take that week off, you have one less vacation day that you have to take, that kind of thing. There will be an information meeting for that early in July, and there will be a sign up at the Welcome Center, and you can contact me. I'm the tall, bald guy, and I can give you more information on that as you will. So that's the mission side, and now I'm going to put on my dad hat, and we're going to talk today about raising sons. Before I do that, first I need to say this: Happy Mother's Day. Thank you. I had a mother. Anyway. Now, a disclaimer here. It is not my idea that a male speaker would talk about raising sons on Mother's Day. I do not schedule, so if you think that that's odd, don't blame me. And the second thing I have to say is, yes, all of you who gave me advice, and I mean every one of you, I give my wife credit for everything, okay? If I use the pronoun I today, and it talks about something good that happened with our kids, I mean we or she. Okay? Now, is that enough? All of those, am I good? Can I go on? All right, thank you very much. Cheryl Ann and I have 2 sons. They are great sons, and so I got this topic. I tried to pawn the job off on Lloyd Bayreuther because he has 2 great sons as well, but it didn't work. And I am acutely aware that many of you are in much more challenging family situations than my kids have experienced. So I approached this morning really with humility and a deep sense and a deep understanding that I'm an imperfect parent and that it's God who gets the kudos in this. I've also been thinking that, as I think about raising parents, I really think I need to be raising myself as well as I raise my parents. So that's part of the challenge. Anyway, this is famille moi, and that's in Creole. It means that's my family. I give you this first picture. With her hands in a semi-strangling position is my wife, Cheryl Ann, and holding the gun to my head on the right is my oldest son, Chris, and holding the gun to my head on the left is my youngest son, Tim. We love the outdoors and adventure, and this picture was taken in the Grand Teton National Park when we were helping Chris move to Oregon 2 years ago. The other awesome woman in the picture is Chris's soon-to-be wife at the time, Ruth, who spent much of the ATV ride spinning dust in my face. I'm not sure if there was a commentary there beyond that, but it's okay, Ruth. I forgive you. Anyway, this shot is Chris and Ruth's wedding just over a year ago. The picture sort of tells you that both of my sons are in the Coast Guard. And also, please note my nice suit and the fact that I was sucking in my stomach at the time. So that's famille moi. Pursuing one verse this morning as we think about raising sons, and that's from Proverbs 22, verse 6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart far from it. Train up a child. The verse really has 2 parts to it. It's train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. And so I want to distinguish, first of all, between the 2 parts of the Proverbs. The first part, train up the child, is the job of the parent and the others who are involved in raising the child. Let me make a quick aside here. Thank you, grandfathers, grandmothers, other relatives, friends, Sunday school teachers, Awana leaders, youth leaders, and so on. Do not underestimate your role in training up. You are all part of this whole village that raises our children. The second part of this verse is, when he is old, he will not depart from it. It's masculine in this version, but it is in fact gender neutral or gender inclusive. Notice how politically correct I said that. The problem in the interpretation is that it can kind of come across as sort of like a formula, that if we do this, then this will happen. But we all know that some very good parents have raised very rebellious children. And we all know that some deficient parents have raised some very great kids. Dave Reed, writing on this verse, reminds us that it is in fact a proverb, and a proverb is a general truth that is stated in general terms. It's a general truth stated in general terms, so an illustration might help. You know that old business about the apple here? That the old saying is, an apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and that's kind of a truism. But think of it. Sometimes when an apple falls, it rolls down the hill, far away from the tree. And other times when the apple falls, it bounces and it rolls away. So, let me give you an example, okay? So here it is. During my undergraduate work in the 1960s and early 70s, I was a dismal student. I graduated, as I have said before, magna cum laude. But My sons fell far from the tree in that regard. Both have graduated from good schools and with good grades, and fortunately, they have bounced away from my academic past. So there is not an equal sign between the two parts of this proverb. So parents, breathe a little bit easy on this. The training part is what we do to the best of our ability. Train up a child in the way he should go. So what's the way? What's the target? It's to become a godly adult. And in the context of our topic today, it's to become a godly son, brother, husband, father, uncle, friend, church member, co-worker. My next door neighbor throws axes at a target for fun. Hey, we live in Ashaway, all right? He raises the axe behind his head, and he flips it out toward this slab of wood, attempting to have it stick right in the center. To do that, he keeps his eye on the target and carefully anticipates the distance and the number of rotations the axe has to take before it plunks into the woods. And when I watch him do that, by the way, I'm thankful that he knows the target and he sends the axe right toward it rather than toward me. The goal, the target, train up a child directly toward becoming a godly adult. So how can we do that? Chuck Swindoll linked this proverb with the 3 word pictures that emerge from the origin of the Hebrew in the word train up. And that's where we're going. We're going to look at these 3 word pictures, and we're going to reflect on them just a little bit. So the first word picture. The Hebrew word for train up is hanak. That's all the Hebrew I know. Don't think I really am impressive. All right? And that means to dedicate or to consecrate. In Proverbs here, it is used to mean dedicating a child. And the root of it comes from a term that is related to the roof of the mouth. And it pictures a midwife who, right after the birth, would crush a bunch of dates, and she would take her finger and she would rub these dates on the child, the newborn baby's gum and lips and the roof of his mouth or her mouth to encourage the baby's sucking instinct so that nursing would begin soon. Swindoll tells us that the midwife stimulated the baby's gums in order to encourage the kind of behavior that would benefit the child, using the baby's instinct, natural instinct, to guide him toward what was best. What a great picture it is. Stimulate the baby to use the natural instincts for what is best, to nurture. So let me offer some suggestions that might stimulate a son toward the target of godly adulthood. First one, developing a relationship with God. To become a godly adult, you have to know God. You have to link in with the power source. And it is our prime responsibility as parents to stimulate our children toward a living relationship with Jesus Christ. Notice I didn't say push our children. I said stimulate our children in that direction. So how did we do that? Well, Cheryl Ann and I did that in a number of ways, and here's a couple. First of all, we would read to our kids every night. We would climb into bed with them, we would pray with them, and we would read with them. And with sons, we often read Christian adventure stories and age-appropriate biographies of renowned missionaries. The Chronicles of Narnia were on the list. And as they got into middle school, we had small group Bible studies for our kids and their friends in our home. It wasn't like it was this big grand thing. We just said, why don't you come over, we'll study the Bible together. There was nothing super deep. We just found study guides that were at their level, and they talked about Scripture, There was no theology degree that was needed. And you want to encourage them to toward learning and living a godly life. Picture of Cheryl Ann here in a box. Help your sons to honor mom and respect women. Let me say that one more time. Help your sons to honor mom and respect women. Model it as a husband and encourage it in your sons. On Friday afternoon, we had a box delivered as I was just about at the time I was at this portrait of preparing the sermon. As this box shows up on our front porch, and guess what? It was flowers from one of my sons. And maybe had a little bit of help from my daughter-in-law as well, but I don't know that for sure. And guess what else? My mother-in-law had a box on her doorstep. It's cool. Help your sons to honor mom and respect women. Learning more about living a godly life. We go camping. Doesn't that look like a lot of fun right there in that picture? Yeah, help your sons to be hardworking, willing to tackle adversity, and tough. And I don't think that's just male characteristics, but it may play out a little bit differently between boys and girls. So here's this camping picture. It looks like fun, doesn't it? We're taking our yearly 2-week vacation with Grandma and Grandpa out on Cape Cod. And it rained, as they would say out there, wicked bad. The campsite was puddles, and our very old camper had sprung several leaks. Chris and Tim and another friend were on air mattresses in a tent, and they had about floated off into Grandma and Grandpa's campsite at the time in the middle of the night. It really was a character-developing time. That's how we talk about it now. We didn't use those words at the time. Character-developing time for the whole family. But I'm thankful for experiences like these when my kids are out in the middle of rough seas, in the middle of the ocean, and rolling around in their bunks and still have to perform their jobs. And for years, Cheryl Ann and I had a youth group at our house, and Ron and Erica Reed and Todd and Elise Poquette and several others of you helped us out. And at the time, Ron and Todd had many of the kids playing roller hockey at the schoolyard across the street from our house. And often for practice, they would put on all sorts of protective gear on Tim and Chris, and they would put them in the goal, and they would just hammer pucks at them. I mean, they would say, "Boom!" and it would hit our kids, they'd fall back, and they'd get up, everybody's laughing. A few welts, but no major injuries. And I'm thankful for experiences like these when my kids have all sorts of adversity pelted at them daily. A little adversity and a little bit of toughness. And hungering to participate in God's goodness. Encourage your children to see the world through Jesus' eyes. Encourage your children to see the world through Jesus' eyes. This picture is of Chris. He's handing out Christian literature to Muslims in Almeria, Spain. In 2002, Cheryl Ann and I took a team from GBC here, and we went there working along with Campus Crusade, which is now Cru. It was a wonderful opportunity to see people passionately sharing Jesus with people who didn't know him. It was formative for them. And both of our sons have traveled with us to Haiti, and basically on the promise that we'd allow them to drive the four-wheel drive up the mountain to Wangamon. But anyway, that's a side story. Seeing the needs of the underserved in an underserved country like Haiti has helped them to grow in their understanding of who God is. And that's one of the reasons why I love our involvement with places like the Navajo Nation and Work Camp New England. Our children have the opportunity to help those who need help and live out godly behavior. And encourage them in godly relationships. this picture here. Let them see mom and dad enjoying each other and a fresh cup of Haitian Rebo coffee. Let them understand our love for each other. And encourage siblings to be best friends. Promote relationships with grandparents, uncles, cousins, etc. Our kids spent a lot of time with relatives on both sides of our family. And every year we spent a couple of weeks in tents and ramshackle campers with Cheryl Ann's parents and Aunt Helen and Uncle Royal, who would take great time to pour a host of good memories and give them great spiritual input. Have some friends yourself, godly friendships. Now that is, behind that mustache is Frank Vitale. Please mock him at the end of this service. Cheryl Ann and I ministered at Camp Berea for a number of years, and Frank and Audrey and Wayne and Jane Cordaway, the entire Reed family, the Poquettes, and a bunch of others of you here were all part of the ministry team and remain supportive friends today. But the point I want to make here is that our kids who played together in camp while we were in ministry are still supportive friends today. And you see here a picture of both of our sons, Abby with Chris, Abby Vitale with Chris, and Abby and Tim in a boat. Encourage godly relationships in your children. And encourage them to embrace adventure and risk-taking. Well, why is that? Because living a godly life is not a passive activity. Being compassionate mandates action. Fighting injustice mandates action. It's you've got to do. Help them experience life in a way that they'll get off the couch and get moving. So we move to guided risk-taking. This picture was taken in the Badlands in South Dakota. It looks scary. It looks like I'm being an irresponsible parent. Don't worry, you'll see some of those later. But it looks scary, but not roped in, that kind of stuff. But we're only 5 or 6 feet off the ground. So it's guided risk-taking. Got it? Guided risk-taking. And here we are in California. We bought some mining pans, we got directions, we stopped the car at a stream, and we made our millions. What fun it was to dip in and say, hey, do you think this is gold? Do you think this is gold? It wasn't, none of it, by the way. All right? And we're here in Park City, Utah. I'll phrase it this way. We may have sojourned into a slightly restricted location at a construction site of the bobsled run for the 2002 Olympics. Okay? We might have done that. But I think the statute of limitations has passed, so we did do that. And what fun it was for us to watch it on TV during the Olympics a few months later. And we're in the desert here, south of St. George, Utah. And I think Tim was 11 at the time. He's in the lead ATV there. And by the way, I'm not sure I would do it at that age again. But we did, and we survived it. So what are we doing here? As parents, we ask, how can we make life a little more interesting or adventurous for our sons? In our answers, the things we do don't need to be your answers. But whatever your circumstance or your personality, seek exciting opportunities for your kids. Encourage them to develop the Tigger side of their personalities. Encourage them to be actively engaged in life. So we move from that first picture into the second picture, that of bridling the horse. The second term used for the train-up in Hebrews relates to the training of a horse. It pictures a horse's bridle, which directs its natural energy but doesn't break its spirit. It doesn't yoke. It doesn't work to dominate the horse. The horse's bit guides the horse, when it is cooperative, and both when it's resistant. And Swindoll says, a wise, caring rider uses the bit and the reins to help the horse achieve its purpose safely and effectively. The goal is guiding. Oftentimes, the bridle only needs a gentle tug to get the horse heading correctly. Sometimes it does need a little bit of a harder tug. So a couple of reflections here. First one is avoiding exasperations. There's a companion passage to our Proverbs verse in Ephesians that starts this way. Fathers, do not exasperate your child, but bring them up in the training and nurture and instruction of the Lord. Do not exasperate your child. So, on one of our adventure trips, we landed in Phoenix, Arizona, and we arranged a car rental. When I didn't get the car I had planned, I rejected that car agency. They were dead to me, and I went another way and rented a similar car. We stuffed all of our gear, camping, traveling, dress up, all in the trunk, except that it didn't all fit into the trunk. So we had to stuff the rest into the back seat along with the kids. And so for the next 3,500 miles or so, and 2 weeks, we played sardines in the car. And it was complete with car sickness, and we drove the serpentine roads of the Rockies and the Sierra Nevadas, and for another $100 or so, I could have rented a minivan, and we could have had a perfectly fine travel time together, but I was a jerk, okay? And how exasperating that must have been for Chris and Tim. And by the way, just so you know, I am, in fact, still mocked about those things to this very day. And here's another example. Chris had just gotten his learner's permit, and we went out to go practice driving. I would say that his performance was less than stellar, to the point that when I got home, I said something to the effect, "That's the worst driving I've ever seen." What encouraging words that was for him. Wisely, Cheryl Ann became his driving coach until he got his license, and he is a good driver today. I was a bonehead. So dads, it's very easy to exasperate our children. Bridles work best when they're just tugged, not yanked. And thwarting the enemy. Here's a verse we should all know. 1 Peter 5:8. Be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Think on that imagery for just a second. The devil prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. The evil one doesn't want our sons, our children, to hit the target of becoming godly adults. And as parents, we need to be vigilant, not panicked, but alert. There's some really bad stuff our kids are exposed to, and we need to help them to be able to discriminate between the good and the bad. Let me illustrate this. You see the backside of two tubes. When I was at Gressier a few weeks ago, I walked into the bathroom early in the morning, and I was getting ready for the day. And guess which one I chose to brush my teeth with? That was a wait for it. We need to help and guess who did the same thing in the afternoon? Again, never mind. It's just, you got to let it go sometimes. We need to help our children know how to brush their teeth with toothpaste, not with hydrocortisone cream. And the third word picture, we switch to that. Train up a child in the way he should go, in the way he, again, gender neutral, should go. Swindoll suggests this verse carries with it the notion of training a child according to his or her characteristic manner. Some are artistic, some athletic, some academic, Some are strong-willed, others are compliant. Which of the 10 times that you told me this did you think I wasn't listening? Which of the 10 times you told me this did you think I wasn't listening? Duct tape, Andy, would have worked well. And then look for what gives your characteristics that you see as they're growing up. Foster passion. Encourage things that float their boat. My son Chris was always loved to challenge and still does love to challenge himself athletically. And for a while in college, Chris decided he would honor his Scottish heritage and participated in several Highland games. I chopped down many trees in our backyard trying to fashion a practice caber. That's that big log you throw, which I would never want to do, but never mind. Sorry, Chris. And practice a caber and so he could have a practice caber. And Tim was always great at mechanical things, and whenever I needed a backhoe operator during a construction project, Tim was my go-to guy. Encourage the things that they do well. Allow them to love being passionate, and God will use it. Watering plants. Right now is the time of the season, the time of the year when we're putting seeds into the ground, and then we water them and nurture them, but it's not the harvest time. If we put seeds in the ground, and we give them proper care, they tend to mature well. And so we try to help our children find their own path, but that takes time and it takes practice. They don't start out perfect. We had Chris and Tim take piano lessons. And because they were brothers who tended to get along pretty well, they would do a recital duet, which, by the way, is a time of great tension for any parent who has ever been there. Learning how to play the piano took time, and often the initial results were somewhat dismal. But that's not the end product, is it? As we help our children to discover their potential, let's give them some grace as they play a few clunker notes along the way. Let's give them some grace as they play a few clunker notes along the way. So we end with this log, we end with this picture that makes me smile, but really I'm aware that my job is not done. Let's continually work to stimulate our children, to guide them and grow them toward the target of being godly adults. And let's do our part and train them up in the way they should go, and then commit them to God's care, so that they won't depart from it. Let's pray. God and Father, we are overwhelmed with the responsibility and the task of being parents. But God, help us to do that in a way that depends upon you and not upon ourselves. Help us, Lord, to do our part well. Help us not to blow it in that regard. And when we do, Lord, help us to ask for forgiveness. Lord, we offer up these thoughts to you this morning. May they encourage people forward. In Christ's name, amen.